Hi, everybody, and welcome to Zero Shot, the AI business podcast without the hype. I'm James Gauci. I'm the CEO of Cadent, and as always, I'm joined by Mr. Llew Jury, the Managing Director of Advancer. Llew, how's it going, mate?
G'day, James, and hello to all the listeners all over the world. It's great to be here.
The map continues to light up. I think we had a YouTube video go just stratospheric recently, so we're pumped up about that. What was it? The AGI one was
The AGI,
yeah.
the agents, AGI and agents, and they're really sounding good. I don't know about you, James. I've been listening back to them, and they, you just sort of go, I think we're doing okay, but we'd love more feedback, of course.
Yeah, more feedback, the better. Send us all of your suggestions. Really keen to kind of bring you the information that matters most to you. But hopefully you'll indulge us just this one episode, because if you've been following us, you'll know that we've already spent 17 episodes talking about other organizations and our clients and our work, other problems, other tools, other products. But today we're doing something that we've never done before, and we're turning the lens on ourselves. We're going to put ourselves in the spotlight today, Llew.
We are.
This one's a little bit more personal than sometimes we go into.
This one, James, is personal, and it's also back to the future. This is episode 17. And we're going to discuss where Cadent and Advancer actually have come from, the origins, what we got wrong, how we view AI, how we saw AI, and what happens in our businesses day to day. Because honestly, it's really important for everybody to probably understand why we're here and what we're doing and why we built the show together. So yeah, just the real version today, James.
100%, mate. Well, look, before we get into it, just a quick word from our sponsor. This episode, as always, is brought to you by our friends at Cowboy. So when we talk about people adopting AI, one of the biggest blockers we see in organizations is that people just don't know how to prompt properly. And they open Claude or ChatGPT, they type something in, they get a kind of weird result. And ultimately, they decide that, hey, I don't like AI. It's not for me. But Cowboy eases that process for people, because they help out with agentic prompting in particular, where you can build out a full prompt for your workflow, prototype it before you even put it into your agent of choice. So if you want people to stop avoiding AI in your organization and start actually getting results from it, go to promptcowboy.ai. Genuinely practical. It's for teams that are going through exactly the kind of shift we're going to talk about today, and that we've been seeing, especially over the last 10 years in AI, right, Luke?
It is, James, and what a great tool. I pay for it, and I think it's just awesome in terms of I use it all the time. You've got these different prompt coaches out there that have been tried to be built. And look, there's one on Copilot that you can use and things like that, but nothing like what promptcowboy.ai puts out. So let's roll into really cool tools and news of the week and what's been new. James, what's been happening in your world of tools of the week?
Tools of the week for me. I mean, it's probably more concept of the week for me, because increasingly we're being asked to have a look at the way that businesses operate, and not just in the digital world, but in the physical world. And we're seeing this kind of connection between digital twins and the physical plant that it's connected to. And so what we've been talking with people about over the last kind of week is, how do we marry those things together? How do we allow the implementation of AI solutions that ultimately add value, whether that's through predictive maintenance or through maximizing yield or identifying points of wastage, offering better decision-making tools to executives and things like that. And these are inherently kind of custom builds and custom conversations, and depend a lot on the hardware and the software that's in situ. So yeah, that's what's got my juices kind of burbling at the moment. And yeah, if there's anybody out there who has kind of novel technologies in this space, really keen to hear from them. I know there are a lot out there, but we're especially looking for people who have novel solutions in food and agriculture and in manufacturing, to see if there are opportunities to collaborate. So that's the concept of the week for me.
Awesome. I love it. Concept of the week. We should add that in, James. And I suppose it lines up really nicely with what I've been doing. At Advancer, we do a lot of training. And at the top of the funnel for us, and the entry point for a lot of our clients, is training and capability, upskilling, and all of the good things that go with bringing people on the journey of AI. And within that, we're really moving into Claude in a big way. And I talked about Claude last week with the skills and some of the early things you can do to set it up, like the connectors and the projects. And the skills are just amazing. I mentioned the CFO skill last week, but this week I've been really quite busy. I'm in my good shirt today, coming live to you because I've been out seeing clients today for data lake houses and things like that. So and I haven't had much time, James. So what I've done is hooked up Claude in the browser in Chrome, and I needed my website updated. There was a sizing thing that was wrong in my Squarespace website, and I just couldn't have the time to fix it. So I got Claude in the browser to do it, and I said, "Don't hit save. Tell me when you've done it." And it came. It actually was my web designer in my browser,
Hmm.
and it then flashed up, and basically I was working. So I was actually working on multiple projects, doing different things, and I've got my Claude in the browser, which is just fantastic. And I've also demoed it yesterday for a client that is very interested because they can't actually grab certain information and provide it in another format. And so I think it's a game changer. Claude
Hmm.
Chrome extension. So if everybody who's got a Claude paid license, you just need to use Sonnet 4.6 and away you go. So that's my tool of the week. And I suppose let's talk about two tools and where it all started. Let's get into why we're here. Why are we here, Joe?
what,
What is the
what,
reason for being?
why are we here in this podcast studio, this virtual podcast studio? It's because of our mutual interest and alignment around, I think I can speak for both of us when I say it's our mutual interest and alignment around how much value AI systems can add to society and the economy and life. And we both have an interest in measuring that value and making sure that it's not just, and I know we bang on about the hype and things like that, but that it isn't just hype. Like, because we genuinely believe in these technologies, right, Lou? Is that kind of fair to say?
100%. So I want to know, and the listeners all want to know, what were you doing before Cadent, and why wasn't it enough? Whatever you were offered up, why wasn't enough, James? Where did you
Hmm.
come from?
My background is kind of uh, varied over a 20-year period. Initially, of all things, I was in the arts. I was in the performing arts. I studied drama, and I did a lot of singing, and ended up doing a lot of theatre production and odd jobs along the way, like being a pub trivia host and
That does not
producing.
surprise me. That does
Yeah,
not surprise me at all.
producing a bunch of theater shows and being on the board of community organizations, and so all of that stuff is just a long way in the rearview mirror now, but has gone on to inform a lot of the ways that I think about doing business and serving the community and adding value in society. So yeah, when I finished my psychology degree, there's another random outlier. I got a job with a human resources consultancy. I set about making a pest of myself with their social media at the time. This is before social media coordinators were a thing, but I kind of carved out a job for myself in that organization doing that kind of thing, and I was able to get some runs on the board pretty quickly with LinkedIn project. It was one of the first LinkedIn professional implementations in the industry that we were working in, and big ROI really quickly. And so they gave me my shooting license, and off I went. But yeah, fast forward a few years, I worked at a couple of marketing technology startups in Sydney, and then moved back to Brisbane and worked for a couple of professional services companies as a project manager, and that was the trade, so to speak, that really resonated with me. I liked working with people and teams and bringing our resources and know-how together to do something that had never been done before. And again, that resonates a little bit with the kind of project-based nature of the arts and especially the performing arts, where you've got a deadline and you don't have a choice. We just got to get in and do this thing, and you have to be resourceful in those moments. And did that for a few years. And the last job that I had before starting the business was as head of digital and technology at Personalised Plates Queensland, which is a large public sector contract run by a private company in Queensland here. So it's a number of plates that go on cars and in Queensland. And this is a matter of public record. I'm not giving anything away. It's a $100 million a year business. And that was in some ways a trial by fire, but also a way to kind of galvanize all of those experiences that I'd earned over the previous kind of 10 years to that point. And so all of a sudden I was leading not just a software team, but I was also responsible for a cybersecurity vendor and an infrastructure vendor. And I was responsible for implementing an ISO management system for information security and making sure that it satisfied government and satisfied our private company, which was a multinational based in France, and like all that fun stuff. And so, it was a really positive experience. It's, as with most government contracts, it's run on a tender. So we retendered for the business and we were successful. And I had a look at the job for the next 4 years and was like, oh, that seems like a lot more of the same of what I was already doing. If you haven't realized by now, I like a bit of a challenge and I like moving on to the next thing. And so I got a couple of day rate contracts and I had to start a business to handle those contracts.
It's always the way. It's always the way, isn't it? Had to start a business. So, I've heard that so many times that you just literally, the way you describe that, it's like a journey to sort of the pointy end, isn't it? And it all just comes together to sort of where you first encounter AI and, what you do and what you actually think.
That's I'll park that there because that's we might do a bit of a past, present, future kind of feeling in this
Let's do it.
in this podcast. But like,
well, just a quick question about PPQ. Was that when they were based in Milton in Brisbane? Was that in the Milton?
No, so we were based in South Brisbane at that
South
point.
Brisbane. That was the one after. Yeah. So my company Reload, which I'll talk about in a sec, we actually had the digital account for that, and it was before the agency picked it up and
That's right.
and put it through. So amazing business, isn't it? But were they still making the plates out at the prisons, James? Was that still happening?
That is an urban myth, that one.
It's an urban myth. Okay, for anybody in Queensland that might be listening, because we all thought they made them out with picks and shovels and things like that. Where are they made?
It is a pretty manual process still. Like it's out in the western suburbs of Brisbane, and but it's not prisoners. It's mostly little old ladies doing screen printing on tin. Like it's well, at least it was when I was there. Still, there was some digital printing and stuff that was happening, but yeah, it's pretty analog for. What was it then? 2018 to 2021 kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
What about your? I want to hear your background, Llew. Like I know your background, but tell the listeners about your journey, like what you were doing before starting Advancer, because it's an entertaining journey and punctuated with some big wins and some big lessons as well.
Lots of lessons. And for those listeners that aren't actually tuning into YouTube that can see me, I'm very follically challenged. And that is 25 years of doing your own startups and digital agencies. I'm pointing at my head that doesn't have much hair left. So yeah, James, look, my journey is all about being an entrepreneur. And then I've gone through these 10-year sprints. So my first 10 years, I had a digital marketing company that built websites, and that was very innovative in the late early 2000s. And we were very small, and we built this company, survived the dot-com crash because we were so small, and just sort of weathered the storm. And then came out, and my brother and I had that company, and we sold that 7 years later to a listed company and a consortium that sort of purchased. And it showed us that, wow, you could go from nothing to 30 staff with lots of good clients. And we had Rio Tinto and Super Cheap Auto. We built Super Cheap's first website and all these sort of things. Back then their website was hosted in a cupboard out in North Brisbane. And, we went out there and built their first website for them in 2001. So we started with the web. We started building apps. We started with a bit of mobile and .NET and all those sort of things that are all the precursors to what we're talking about today with AI. And then after that, I basically set up Reload Media, which became one of the largest and still is one of the largest independent digital marketing agencies in Australia. And I set that up under my house. And I got this young guy in called Craig, who was 14 years younger than me. And it's going to be a bit of a thematic about today, is that it's about great people, right? And Craig and I then built Reload, and I exited that 4 years ago. But what I did was in 2016, Craig came back from our London office. We're in 4 countries and we had nearly 100 staff. And I said, he sort of looked at me and said, what are your plans? And I said, well, what are your plans? You want to be managing director? And he went, yep, I'll have your office. And I went, that's my after 10 years, you got to know when is best time to leave. I
Mm,
actually think when you don't want to do the scaling, you've done the growth, and you don't want to do that extra scaling. You don't want to be when you see an HR manager arrive, or you see an operations head of operations arrive. You're like, well, do I want to be in the weeds in this area, or do I want to go and do something else? So I went
mm,
up to River City Labs in Brisbane, and I was an entrepreneur in residence for the Muridi Accelerator Program, which is a national paid accelerator program where we chose approximately 10 startups and gave them 100 grand each,
mhm,
and basically then accelerated their growth. That got me into VC, and VC is it's a fun game. It's a long game, patient capital game. Raised two funds, invested in 19 companies. So
mhm,
I raised quite a bit of money off 90 investors that then became what Sprint is today. So that's Sprint.
mhm,
But I've been a director of Advancer for 10 years, and basically I've been sort of working at the board level and things like that, and then that sort of gets me to my AI journey. Researching this pod, there is a video from me in about 2017, 2018 doing Whiteboard Wednesday, and Whiteboard Wednesday is me going, "Hi, I'm Llew Jury. These are the cool things in AI." So I was looking at this thing back then going, here's a chatbot,
yeah.
and this is cool, and this is not, and whatever it was. So, it's been a journey. Like you, I've got to sort of the end of this, this first segment. And I want to ask you, where was your first encounter with AI, James?
Mm,
And where was the light bulb moment to actually go, I'm going to take Cadent and make it an AI company? What
mm.
what was the inspiration behind that?
10 years ago, I did my first AI project, and it was a branded experience for Spotify using Spotify, like built on top of Spotify's API, which has a lot of machine learning baked in. And I was lucky enough to be working with a guy named Owen McCarthy, who was one of the developers on the precursor machine learning work that eventually got bought by Spotify and became the underlying neural net that they use to power the a music personalization experience.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, huge props out there to Owen. I'm sure he's listening. And that was a really cool experience because I knew about AI, but I'd never had any actual direct experience working with it. So me and a couple of the team members at Hydric was the name of the business that we were working at. We put together a branded experience which recommended music to people based on, well, actually, it recommended music to people, but it also recommended to them a place to travel based on their music taste. So you log in with your
Cool.
Spotify profile, it compares your unique music listing history to the music listing fingerprint of Emirates destinations around the world and recommends you a place to travel based on the kind of music you like. And then it gives you a bunch of music that you might like from that place and some content around like the music scene there and places you might go to experience that and things like that. And super fun working for Spotify, really big, really fast moving organization. And that set me down a little track of like learning more about machine learning and learning more about the state of AI at that time. And I listened to a podcast called Machine Learning Guide at the time, which was essentially this guy's journal. It was his learning journey going from web programming into machine learning. And he was teaching himself a lot of this stuff. And he got to the bit where he started learning about stats. And he was talking to me about these concepts like multiple regression analysis and, t-tests and things like that. And I'm like, hang on a minute, this is second year stats from my psych degree. I know all this stuff already. And I enjoyed that stuff. I didn't get great marks in it, but I appreciated the concepts and I understood how it all hung together. And that was the moment where the penny dropped for me. I was like, this is something that I have been interested in, but I'd never kind of been able to see where those two circles overlapped and became the Venn diagram. And so since then, it had always been in the back of my mind. There weren't many AI jobs going around that time. Like there was an exodus in the Australian economy of AI specialists, and they were all going to work for Facebook and the rest.
I remember that.
Yeah, and so there wasn't a lot of AI industry left in Australia, so there weren't that many jobs going. Continued to apply my trade, and then 2019 came around, and AI governance popped on my radar, and Like, how do we maximize the benefits of AI whilst minimizing the risks and the harms? And so that's an idea that kind of stuck with me, and I did my own kind of connecting with people and reading and watching and all the things that you do when you're interested in something. And when Cadent as a business cropped up, like, you have to start a business, I started the business that I wanted to work for because it didn't exist. And that was a socially conscious but impact orientated AI consultancy. And mind you, this was pre ChatGPT. So, again, there wasn't much of a market for this kind of thing at the time. So we had to do more standard kind of software development work. But when ChatGPT happened, everything kind of, the conversation changed, and all of a sudden people were interested in our opinion on stuff. And that's why I'm here today. How about you, Lou? When did you first encounter AI, and other than Whiteboard Wednesdays? And what what was the penny drop moment for you?
Well, it's a funny one because I think most people, there's some people still doing algorithms, right, that we were doing in the late 90s with web
Mm,
design that are sort of, considered to be automation and AI. And some of those algorithms became cron jobs, and cron jobs have become end automations, right?
yeah,
So
the goalposts kind of shift over time, haven't they? Of
they
what we
do.
consider AI. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and to the listeners that aren't technical, I think the biggest thing is that it's been around forever in practical application, and I've been seeing it since probably the late 90s in the form and function of these sort of algorithms. I think the big thing for me was the watershed moment was also 2019. We were having a dabble with chatbots and seeing these different things from about 2015. And I started to get really interested in it from an e-commerce point of view as well, because there was a lot of e-com, and Google were using it for some of the platforms for the demand side of Google Ads and stuff
yeah.
like that, and the media buy side. So what I basically started to look at in 2019 and build, we actually tried it and built on probably the ugliest LLM ever, James, which is IBM Watson.
Yeah.
And IBM Watson was atrocious. It just didn't work. We had to build a PHP and MySQL, website effectively, and database wrapper on top. We spent quite a bit of money. We probably dusted nearly 50K trying to build out what GPTs now do today, and what you can build right now in Lovable or in Claude Code. You could actually do what we did and took 6 months to do. So remarkable in 7 years how far it's come, and where we've got to. So that's a good moment to probably dwell on what we've got wrong. Like,
Mm,
where some of the lessons lie, and what some of the biggest mistakes we've made and things like that. I think one of the key things I wanted to share with listeners was, everybody's journey is not perfect. And I've seen a lot of startups, and I've seen a lot of businesses that I've invested in. I've set up myself, gone down a number of dry gullies and dead ends, and really had to sort of pull back, doing it all the time. These test and learns, whatever you want to call them, everybody is doing it. So don't feel isolated if you're a founder, or even if you're a mature business. Everybody's in the same
mm.
boat.
It's just worth dwelling on what you said just then, I think, which is that it's sometimes really lonely when you're heading up a business, especially a small business. And a lot, like, we're all going through the same stuff. We all feel alone at different times. And the best thing that we as founders can do is kind of look out for each other and do the hard thing, which is sometimes going out for a beer with another founder and
Absolutely. It's like,
leaving the laptop at home, kind of thing.
correct. Yeah, the human side, right? And it's like, James, when we jump on these calls, when we record this, right, we always jump on a pre-call to have a bit of a pre-brief, and we catch up
Mm,
with Yenny, our producer. And you know how when you and I jump on, we're like, how are you, mate? How are you, mate? Oh, I'm
mm,
really busy. I've got this going on. And you say the same. Oh, I've got this
mm.
going on. We're all use this as quite cathartic. It's a
Yeah.
cathartic platform for me. I think the other key lesson, yeah, absolutely, it's lonely at the top. It
Mm,
it is very lonely as a founder, and growing a business, and the ups and downs. But as long as you keep going, up, you will, those troughs and
mm.
peaks and all that will line themselves out.
1% every day.
1% every day, right? So that's the key thing. The main thing for me is, if you're going to fail in anything that you do, especially uh, across technology or whatever you're doing, there was an old adage that was said to me from a CEO that my wife actually picked up and told me about, which I've used for many years now. If you're going to fail and you're going to make mistakes in your business, which we all are, then fail fast and do it quickly,
Mm,
fail quietly, fail internally, and fail cheaply.
mm,
And that stuck with me, because if you can do that and make mistakes and go, oh, that moment I got wrong. I made the
mm,
wrong decision in tech, like IBM Watson. I mean, I still get emails from them, and I'm trying to unpack myself from them. The other thing is, I have been a director of an overseas Asian country, and I wouldn't recommend trying to spend 8 years like Craig and I had to do to deregister ourselves as a director of that company, right?
mm,
So you're going to outsource, then probably do it in a different model. So these are some of the lessons that I've learned over the years, that,
mm,
if you're going to do it, fail fast, fail quietly, fail cheaply, fail internally. And the internally bit is, bring your young people along for the journey on that, because show them the battle scars that they actually exist. We've all got these things that happen, but if you explain why we're doing that and why we're pulling back and what we're doing, they're going to learn in their journey and hopefully not repeat it. So what
mm.
about you, James? What's one of the biggest mistakes you've made? Like a reverse humble brag
So
designed
many
as
to
a
choose
mistake.
from. So many to choose from. I think the biggest error that I made that had significant business consequences was when we started up our product Ethy, and I've never talked about this publicly before. So, like, hot scoop on the
Got some music?
the
Yeah,
Zero Shot podcast, but
you've heard it. You've heard it here first.
you heard
All
it here
right.
first.
Yeah.
So Ethy was a product that we commenced development on in early 2024, and we were the first to state that we're going to build an ISO 42001 compliant AI management system product. So a product that helps you adopt that management system. So you might think of it like Vanta for AI, and a kind of a specialist governance, risk, and compliance tool for AI. And we did that kind of noticing what the major headwinds were. Like, the government in Australia was talking a lot about how they were going to potentially regulate AI. They were talking a lot about consultations, and there was a lot of consultation happening with industry and academia and institutions and things like that. And we were involved in a lot of those conversations. We still have great contacts out there who have since gone on to some pretty impressive stuff, who we were collaborating with at that time. And we expected, like, I bet the farm on the fact that we were going to have some level of mandatory guardrails for AI in this country.
Interesting.
And all it took was 6 weeks and a change of minister. That's
Yeah.
all
Wow.
it took to throw all of that work in the bin. And I'm not saying that that was the only kind of thing. Obviously, there's tons of stuff that we could have done differently, and a little bit of capital would have
Yeah.
helped at certain critical times and whatever. But I bet big on it, and the team bet big on it, and we were really passionate about it. And I think in the end, what ended up happening kind of showed me that you can't, like, the lesson was that you can't bank on anything like that. And, like, it has now kind of informed a lot of our practice, and we use it as an internal tool, and we built a ton of IP. But as something that hasn't made any direct revenue, that kind of looks like a multiple six-figure mistake on the profit and loss or the balance sheet, or however you want to do it. So what I learned was that if you're going to make bets like that, you've really got to believe in yourself, and you've not got to be doing it necessarily because you're going to be making money out of it. And I think this is why I'm still still kicking as a result. Is it's something that I genuinely believed in. I really believed in the ability for standards like 42001 to have an outsized positive impact on businesses and on the economy. And I think it's a necessary part of governing these very powerful systems that we now call AI. And I don't think that's changed, but the market wasn't made, so to speak, by the government through regulation. And so now we're doing a lot of service work, which is empowered by that technology, but it's very much an indirect kind of effort.
So that is cool. That's actually a great lesson for listeners and anybody, as I said, doing a startup and building a startup, that you go through these cycles. You invest in platforms that you think are going to win, and you sometimes need to consolidate them, build them back in because of a ministerial change or some market forces or a black swan event like a COVID or a
Mm,
.com crash or something like that. So I think the way that you've then solved it is the critical piece to it. It's how you
mm.
actually deal with the conflict, isn't it? So,
And we've evolved significantly as a business since then, and that's out of pure necessity. And I think that
yeah.
it's that kind of pivot or persevere kind of mindset. Like, do we stick with this, or do
Yeah.
we shift because we have to? And sure, we might not be drinking champagne yet, but that day will come if we survive long enough.
At least you're not eating your own dog food. So, or drinking your own Kool-Aid. I think that's a lesson for services businesses out there. So
Mm,
one of the things that we both do is we're services businesses and we're offering a service to our clients, which are
mm,
albeit quite different. James's clients are different to my clients, and but they all demand the same thing. They demand us the service to be fulfilled, and our people then deliver that for them, and hopefully they come back as repeat clients because that's the secret sauce of a services business. The big
mm,
thing about that is all these tools like the vibe coding platforms and the cursors and the Claude codes and things like that put put product in the hands of services companies like us and very creative people like us who love to vibe code on a weekend. So my big sort of message is absolutely build product, but make sure you build product in a way that is actually is servicing the needs of your clients right now. You're not
mm,
trying to force product to them because generally they're going to go, that's great. I love your product, love your
mm,
idea, but we're not going to use it. We still need you to do this thing over here. So I think that's a really critical thing. Often creative people are running at a rate of knots, can see ahead of where a client needs to be, and will try and build something for that. And that's product, right? So I actually think with the changes happening with AI and how fast the coding world is changing, and what we've seen in the last 6 months, even,
mm,
it's about, I think, making sure you're delivering truly great service, truly great, quality outcomes to your clients first, and then you can talk about products. So, just a little tip on services companies versus product companies. And I was in a session today where the CEO, who has actually attended one of our AI masterclasses, he's now vibe coding and building things on the weekend. He's got his own way of doing things. I'm amazed by these awesome CEOs what they're doing. Anyway, back to us. Should we get into the inside, the inner sanctum? Was there anything
mm,
else you wanted to talk about you as a direction you would have gone, or
mm.
pulling, stopping, or something we got wrong early, or anything else in that front before we
No.
talk about the inside of what they're
But
doing?
before we get into like the day to day of what it's like working in an AI business in 2026, I think just one last thing that I would say to people is if you've you know you only live once, and if you're being authentic to your own values um and that's your way of like of caring about about people, then just do it. Like
Yeah,
I wouldn't change any of it. It was incredibly painful, but I wouldn't change any of it because I learned so much in that process, and I'm still friends with everybody from that experience. And if you can tick both of those boxes, then yeah, you're winning. That's a big win.
100%. And yeah, it's a really good point, I think, about relationships are everything, and people are everything. And Australia's a small place where we're based.
Mm,
I didn't say where we're based in the city because just even in Australia is a small place. So
mm,
it's a matter of making sure that you certainly go on the journey that you want to go on, but also you keep those good relationships going. So
mm, mm,
let's get into the day to day AI from
mm.
the inside, and some practical and specific tips about what's going on inside an AI organization right now. I'm sure the listeners would love to hear about it.
Let's draw the curtain. I'll have
Pull
a
the
go
curtain
first.
back.
Like if you're watching this on video, you are literally seeing the nerve center of Cadent, which is a very small office in Moreton Bay, just north of Brisbane. And day to day for us is predominantly remote. Day to day for us is thinking about how do we deliver AI governance solutions that are fit for purpose. So, and that's a lot of talking to people, understanding why they're doing their job, what it is they're doing, how they're doing it, so that we can give really good advice on how AI should be adopted in that circumstance in a way that respects and positively impacts all of the stakeholders involved. and then writing policies for that and procedures for that, and then socializing that amongst the teams and training and awareness and stuff like that, which is a load of fun and invariably levels up the conversation about AI in an organization and what the opportunities are, which is where the next bit comes in, which is AI engineering. And so because of the kinds of organizations that we work with where security is paramount and privacy is paramount, and in a lot of organizations, even kind of sovereignty and autonomy of individuals is really important. Like in the past, we've worked with Aboriginal corporations where data sovereignty and digital sovereignty is critical. And the word that is often used in circumstances like that is decolonizing the technical solution. So you're essentially having to take all of the assumptions that you have about doing your technology work, chuck it out and go from first principles and go through an end-to-end co-design process on how you're going to engineer something, which again is super fun. And I love that stuff.
Wow.
But internally, we're often grappling with, okay, we see how the industry is doing this. We see how it's happening at the cutting edge. How do we make it acceptable for an organization that has a lower risk appetite? And so often that's to do with making sure that it's onshore, making sure that it's secure, rolling our own stuff a lot of the time, like building an end-to-end conversational voice system because it's the health sector and they can't use 11 labs offshore, or building an onshore agentic workflow orchestration platform for the finance industry because information can't go offshore and Privacy Act changes are coming in and the regulators are breathing down everybody's neck. So that requires not just an appreciation of the reasons why these organizations need these things, but also an appreciation of how to realize that from an engineering and architecture and technical perspective. And that again is where that's the kind of stuff that we love to chew on. And we're lucky that we've gotten to work with some really cool organizations over the period. Like we're working with our local council, and we've worked with the federal government program, and we're talking with Japanese companies now, courtesy of my recent trip, about how to have kind of advanced manufacturing with AI embedded and machine learning embedded for things like predictive maintenance or food and agriculture for yield or things like that. So yeah, complex problems applied. It's basically applied science, like taking that scientific mindset and not assuming too much and validating everything along the way so that you can deliver a fit for purpose and co-design solution. That's what the day-to-day looks like for us. Aside from all of the things that you always have to do in a professional services situation, like doing your timesheets and sending invoices and all that kind of stuff, which we're trying to
Managing
automate the heck
people.
out of.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's it. That's eating your own or drinking your own champagne. I think,
Yeah.
like it's slightly similar, but same, different for us. At Advancer, what we do is, I suppose, more of the consulting side of it. We don't like the word AI consultant, but we still leave it on our website.
Yeah, it's got
But
a little bit of a tinge to it, doesn't it?
it does, but it's a search term. So in GPTs, which are big for us, people still go, who's an AI consultant in X, Y, and Z that I can talk to. So GPTs with GEO, check out the podcast on that that we did. So the big thing for us is top of the funnel. We do a lot of training, so we're out all the time. I suppose we're fully remote and we come together once a week, and we basically, there's 8 of us that get together, and when they're not traveling the world, because everybody seems to be on holidays and having a great time, which is awesome. We encourage everybody to fly, go around. So what we do is we come together on a Friday. That's a big day for us. We consolidate everything, we plan for the next week, and then we grow the team through that process as well. So every time we come together, we try and do either a team lunch. We definitely do Friday beers. We always, we're trying to do like 2-hour sessions in the morning for ISO 2701 and SOC 2 training, or they're doing some strategy, or, because our world is moving so quickly. The other one that we do is about tool stacks. So what's everybody using right now? We all aligned on the right platforms and what we're using, because there's so many different things going on. And in our world, clients have different needs and different tech that they use. So generally speaking, it's Microsoft and the Google suites, and N8N for a bit of automation, and all these, Vercel and things like that. So there's all these different balls in the air with tech stacks. So we're constantly having to pull those tech stacks together and offer those up. But AI training is a big part of what we do, and AI training, I think, is is a bit of an unloved one, and you kind of need to do AI training in order to enable and upskill people, and that's the critical piece that
Mm.
we're spending a lot of time in the office making sure the training we deliver is perfect to that organization, because it's truly going to move the needle on productivity for that organization and then the greater society if we can, 35 staff at a time roll through, 3 training sessions of 10 or so people and make a massive difference to how they use and put not just GPTs in their hands, but actually some of this agentic AI. So,
Mm.
it's really, really cool to see. But, you know, it's big days. I think I've never worked harder. I have worked out that even though we have 8 people, so there's 2 of us as the founders and then 6 that help out, basically we're working and acting like we are in an agency of about 15 to 16 people,
Yeah.
because we have sort of become an AI native company, and
Mm.
that basically means AI first. And the
Yeah.
AI first piece is that we basically are growing as the organization through agents first, rather than going to hire someone to come and do that task. We
Yeah.
still have the core elements though. We've got the marketing coordinators and the AdWords specialists, and we've got the
You need accountable people, right?
engineers, all of that, right? So yeah. So what about, like, let's get into some client stuff. What, James, when a client comes to you, what's the one thing that you sort of say to them? I'll give you another example. People at Reload used to come to us and go, I need to do some SEO. And we got, it was simple. We got to the end, like when I sold, and I reckon I would have heard that 1,000 times, right? So
Mm.
we'd sit down and we would ask one question: why do you think you need SEO? And we'd let the client then answer that
Mm.
question.
Mm.
And they often never did SEO. They did, Facebook ads or Google ads, or they did,
Yeah.
media buy or built something else. A lot of people, because it's the same with AI, right? They
Mm.
come to you and go, hey, James, I need some AI. Hey, Lou, we need some AI.
Yeah.
What do you say to them? How do you approach that first question? And what's one thing you answer?
My first question is usually, what are you trying to achieve? And
Yeah,
it's the same
same.
conversation as we were having for chatbots in 2015 and mobile apps in 2012. And it's like, why do you think you need a mobile app? Is it because you
Yep.
see them everywhere and you use them all the time, or is it because there is actually value to be derived from this? And it's like you were saying earlier, it's back to the future. Everything that's old is new again. We've got a new capability. Everybody knows we need to take advantage of this new capability. James, how do we AI this?
Yeah.
And nine times out of
Substitute word with AI, right?
yeah,
And then in 10 years' time, it will be substitute AI with something. It probably won't, but it's a bit like Meta. I reckon the biggest stuff up though was when Meta changed their whole name to Meta, and that went really well for them. We're all using the virtual world goggles, aren't we,
yeah,
from Zuckerberg? So
yeah.
so it's a bit like that. But it's like, James, how do you then approach a client? Like, when a client approaches you, how do you then work through? What are the first steps
Mm.
that you kind of do to work out really quickly? Because we've got to be fast in this, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. And look, I've got to be honest, attention spans are shorter than ever.
Yep.
And everybody thinks that they're an AI specialist because ChatGPT tells them so.
Yep.
And so it's hard to kind of grab people really quickly. And usually my response in those situations is, okay, so what value are you getting out of that AI that you're using? And the answer is, I don't know.
Yeah.
It feels like I get about half an hour back on that process. Okay, great. What if you could never do that process again? How does that sound? And then all of a sudden, you're not just talking about AI, you're talking about the way that the business process is operating and how AI can change it.
Yeah.
So it's what are we currently doing? What's the current state of this? Is like process management 101. What's the current state of things in light of these environmental changes, i.e., AI capabilities? What is the to be state or the target state? What are our expected benefits in that end state? And let's implement or test or find out, like, how do we do as little as possible to find out whether there's a there? And that's
It's
just
funny.
business process management 101.
It's Back to the Future. 20 years ago, 2007, I was doing some consulting between my 2 businesses. I had a couple of years off from selling to an ASX. You have to take a few years off from a restraint. And I went down to Canberra and did some process engineering for the passport division of
Mm.
the Department of Immigration and Citizenship, because they had a few problems.
No,
I did
they
this.
still need help down there, I think.
They still need help, but I went down there and I worked for a couple of months, flying in, flying out, doing sort of BA work, if you want to call it that. Very simply, if you've got a whiteboard, you can actually apply this right now to AI. And this is what James is talking about. And it's what we do. In the middle of the whiteboard, document down the process of what you're doing currently, right?
Mm,
On the left, put who the actor is that affects and causes that process. And on the right of the whiteboard, put the artifact or the output that's
mm,
generated. It's I was doing that 20 years ago. That's management
mm.
consulting 101, like really basic. And
I
you
think
can apply it right now to AI
the
and go, who's doing it? What's the process? And what are the artifacts produced? And where do we want to go with it?
the
And
the
how do
thing
we
that is
then
the thing that has changed is kind of the paradigm around what AI is capable of. Right? That's the thing that's changing is the level of autonomy that these systems have to make decisions that people otherwise would have, and then finding out what the minimum baseline of what good looks like that tells you whether or not a human does still need to be involved. And that's inherently different for every single use case, isn't it?
100%, 100%. And it was interesting today when we went and talked to the CEO I've been working with for 12 months, and they're a logistics company, and we were in there talking about data lakehouses, and
Mm,
we've been talking to them for 6 to 8 months about data lakehouses, basically saying you need to get your data in order and from all these different systems, structured and unstructured, to be able to build great AI on top. He's
mm,
been having a dabble on the side, and he basically raised that point. He said, okay, so what's the proof of value? So we talk about POVs, not POCs. So
mm,
proof of value of what we're going to do. What ROI as a CEO am I going to get from this AI adoption or AI agent or AI custom AI that I'm building?
mm,
And I think that that's the critical piece. I think that if you're approaching it and reverse engineering it from a use case and point of value situation or proof of value, not a proof of concept, you're going to get a lot more benefit from it. And then you can put in place all the infrastructure, the tools, the people, the change management, the process engineering, all of that. So it was
mm.
really good to see after 12 months, it's coming back from the top. And I was really stoked from that today. So yeah, really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and slow down the pace a little bit because Yenia, our producer, is giving me the eye right now and is pointing to the clock and all of those things. We want to wrap this up, but I want to kind of wrap this up on a bit of a reflective note, Lou, because in especially right now in AI, it feels like it's going a mile a minute, right?
It does.
And whether or not that is the case, the feeling is what matters. And when we step back from our day to day and have a think about what kind of world we want to live in or what kind of impact we want to have had on it, like when you're sitting there late at night with your glass of scotch or what have you, and you're thinking, what is the legacy that I want to leave? Or, in 30 years' time when I've packed everything up, uh, what what do you want to have been your contribution to the conversation or the industry or society or what have you? Or what are the things that you think about?
Well, mine is all about legacy. Absolutely, leaving a legacy behind in these different 10-year sprints that I'm doing, and this is my third one. And I think that the big thing about that is about the people and the
Mm,
people you've taken along on the journey, the capability uplift, the upskilling of people, how they may have adapted as people and really grown in terms of their not only their technical skills but also their human to human skills. And I think
mm,
that's the legacy that I want to leave. I want that on my tombstone in terms of he came here for a long time and a good time, and he helped a lot of people, but my big thing is about the human shift behind this.
mm,
My big thing is about not just the doomsday scenarios of the human thing, that all the hype that's going on with AGI and everything we've been talking about, and job displacement and all that sort of world. It's actually the people that are joining us on the journey and what we're doing. And I think that's the critical thing for me that I want to leave behind out of all of
mm,
this AI and tech, because that's all changing every day. AI and tech changes all the time, but people are the constant, and we can't forget that. And it's about relationships at the end of the
mm.
day. James, what about you?
When Yeah, I've been asked this a few times, and because we're a social enterprise, like it is something that is kind of front of mind for us. Like we are a purpose-led organization at the end of the day. And if I was to sum it up in a nutshell, I've got a 4-year-old daughter. She just turned 4. I want my daughter and her kids to grow up in a world where the benefits of AI vastly and unquestionably have outweighed any of the risks or harms. And we are
Yeah.
absolutely not there yet. And there's a long road ahead of us. But I'm fundamentally an optimist. And the opportunity that we have is to grab it by the horns. I think there's a bit of, it's easy to step back and say, oh, well, it's going to go this way or it's going to go that way, but then actually not behave as an agent in the environment. It's harder to get on the front foot and say, I'm going to be an agent for positive change. And I'm going to be the one in my organization who kind of takes up the mantle on making sure that this works for people instead of harming people, or start a business that has that as a mission. And this isn't about gassing up my own tires or anything like this. This is just something that I started this business in anger kind of thing. My anger has mellowed quite a lot and I've learned a ton along the way. But I wouldn't have had it any other way. And if I can move the needle even a little bit in favor of people and a humane approach to technology, then I'll consider my job as having been worth it 100%.
I think that's the summary today and the big takeaway, isn't it? Leaving a legacy for your daughter and my kids, and making sure we're building a better future. That's the biggest thing, and I think that it leads into next episode, James, and we're going to talk about the businesses that waited. We didn't wait, as you've just heard. I felt like I didn't even touch the surface today. I felt like I didn't even open up the tent and talk. So, we need to do this again. I think it's very cathartic, as I said. Anyway, next episode, we're going to talk about the businesses that waited, the ones that saw AI coming, and they've had the conversations. They've had us in the boardrooms, and then they haven't done much at all. They may have got a little bit of co-pilot training or something like that and said, we've done AI. And what's it actually cost them? We're going to have some examples from overseas and some real stories and real consequences, aren't we, James? That we don't. Basically, this one's going to be pretty sharp, and it's going to be quite maybe confrontational. So, James, looking forward to that one.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting one. And having just come back from Japan, where they are really mindful of their digital transformation needs, and they've quantified it's trillions of dollars lost over the last little while in not seizing the right opportunities at the right times. And so I think it's a timely conversation, especially when the economy is the way that it is and productivity is front of mind for everyone. So I think it'll be great. But we couldn't have that podcast next week if Prompt Cowboy wasn't our sponsor. If today's session made you think about how to actually get your team using AI properly, go and check out their agentic prompting feature. It's the practical starting point that a lot of organizations are missing. So trot on over to promptcowboy.ai. Llew.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Thank you for joining Zero Shot to all our listeners around the world. And that's it for today's session. And, we're building Zero Shot, James, Llew, and I, we're doing it for the builders and the skeptics and the AI experts, the AI trainers and the engineers and the strategists and everybody who's actually moving the needle in the industry. And so thank you. But here's the thing. We don't want to just talk at you like we did today. We genuinely are enjoying all the inbound that's coming in. And we will get back to people that are actually emailing us now, which is amazing. So thank you for the outreach. So whether you're a CEO in Sydney or a developer in Austin or an operator in between, your perspective is what keeps us and this show anti-hype and clarity first, James.
100%. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find James Gauci, Cadent, or Llew Jury at Advancer. Follow the Zero Shot page on there. Find us on YouTube. Find us on TikTok. Find us on Instagram. Find us on, Facebook,
everywhere.
I guess. Just everywhere. Everywhere you can get content.
Yeah.
And
cool.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
The whole lot.
we've had some really good feedback on LinkedIn as well. Like we've actually had some inbound guest inquiries. If there's someone that you know who you would love to kind of spar with us and kind of bounce with us as we talk about AI concepts, please, by all means, give us a shout out. And a shout out to Yenia Larotta, of course, who will be fielding those inquiries, who's our amazing producer. And stay sharp, stay sovereign, everyone. And we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
Cheers.